So, welcome to today's conversation. How are you doing today, Amber?
I'm well. How about you, Martin?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you for asking.
Good.
Today's conversation, again, this is one where we haven't told you what we're going to talk about, but I love where this is going to go. And that's on the topic of entrepreneurship.
Whoa.
I know you come not only from a personal entrepreneurship background, but from a family of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And certainly there's a lot of space where entrepreneurship and project management can intersect. They don't
hmm
necessarily have to intersect.
hmm
But I would love to, even with just a wide open question, throw entrepreneurship and project management at you and just see what kind of thoughts come up for you as you move into those two spaces.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think to start, I would say let's make entrepreneur or entrepreneurship very much a verb in this conversation. And by that, I mean, let's not talk about an entrepreneur, which technically is actually a profession, where that would be my father's profession. My father was an entrepreneur, noun. And I recognize what it's like to live adjacent to a entrepreneur in the noun sense. And there's a lot of stuff there. I, in having that proximity to an entrepreneur, I'm an only child. My awareness of the world and sort of the way I grew, sort of my even, I would say, professional bias was through this lens of what an entrepreneur thinks, how they see the world, and as a noun, how they engage it, because that's their profession. I chose to make entrepreneurship, I chose to kind of level my profession onto the verb side, which is what is the action of being entrepreneurial. And I think when I think of entrepreneurship as a verb, I think it's applicable completely to project management. And the reason that is because it's sort of the applicable, tangible, this is the way of working side. And I think as project management professionals, the ones that I know well that excel in their careers and understand their profession, they're entrepreneurial. And they have to be because, by definition, project management is a uncertain world. The profession may have certainty in that we have, very consistent, repeatable processes that we may follow for success. What we cannot have certainty around is what we have in front of us that we are producing, the product, the service, or the result. Because by definition, a project is initiating, creating something that is new and unique. So I often give the example when I'm teaching project management of the backup camera in a car, and I say to students, people that I'm engaging with, I'll say, okay, so the backup camera was a project at one point because we didn't have backup cameras, and then all of a sudden we had a backup camera. So whoever invented the backup camera, that was one project from beginning to end, and at the beginning we didn't have them, and at the end we had a backup camera. But if you purchase cars sort of in the last 15 to 20 years on a regular basis, so let's say you're turning in a lease every 3 to 5 years, what you're aware of is there's new features in your backup camera. Like, oh, if I turn my indicator, now I have a camera on the side. Each one of those innovations on top of the initial project is a project as well. So although we're not always inventing or producing a backup camera from the beginning, every iteration, every development, every add-on is a separate project. And that's where the entrepreneurship comes in, because it takes someone who's invented the backup camera, who's using a backup camera, to be in the application of using it to then go, wait a minute, it would be really cool if we had this. It would be really cool if this was a feature. It's in that creativity mindset where the entrepreneur really lives. And I think as project management professionals, we also have to do that when the project isn't going well, when the complexities abound, and that's why I think entrepreneurship and project management are actually very closely connected, because project managers who really understand that know that part of their role is to be innovative and creative. The heavy lifting is that risk will come, uncertainty will abound, and we will not cower in fear as project management professionals. We will see the risk. We may have made plans for it, but as it is actually happening, we have to be innovators. We have to be entrepreneurial in our solutions. And that means thinking outside the box. And I think for me as a kid, being raised by an entrepreneur noun, I am aware that 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 my father experienced almost no certainty in his pursuits.
So let me ask right there, because that's beautiful. With a father who had no certainty,
Hmm.
that must have affected your journey. That must have affected your journey, especially into project management.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think watching him have no certainty affected you going down this professional path?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I am aware of, and let me be clear, when I was growing up observing my father, I wouldn't have been able to say that about his career path because it wasn't, I didn't have the perspective I do now. Now that I am at the stage that I'm at, I can reflect back and see that resilience was in spades in my father's career path because he had this innovative, creative energy that he would pour out into a whole bunch of different areas. And he did have success, definite success, measured success in a lot of cases, but he also never stopped having to feel that need to make certain the uncertain. And I think even from a financial standpoint, as an entrepreneur, he had some really amazing success. But those successes, albeit let's say financial gains, became investments for future opportunity. And so a lot of the time he was turning those financial resources that he had made gains in one area, they became sort of the seed money for the next area because he had this insatiable appetite for innovation and to continue to sort of push his own resilience, I think. Without knowing fully my dad's passed away now. I lost him about 18 months ago. And he was very, very ill for probably about 5-6 years before he passed away. He had Parkinson's. And I don't know for sure. But I can tell you, as a child observing my father's career path, it felt like he was always either chasing something or running away from something. And, the self-awareness journey that I've been on in the last decade has made me look at some of his professional trajectories. And I've kind of wondered, wow, like, was he running away from that situation because he felt maybe it was rubbing up against his emotions in a way he didn't know what to do with. I mean, my father was from the generation where we don't talk about it. There's no therapy. Are you kidding? No, that we don't self-actualize. We just keep grinding. And so he was that entrepreneur who kept grinding. I often wonder too, like, okay, was he running away from it? Or is he so creative and innovative that he's chasing that next big thing because he has an insatiable desire for new? I think it might have been a combination of both. And I think for me now, as I am absolutely claiming project management as my profession, I'm aware that there's benefit in both running away from something, but also in chasing something. And I think as project managers, there are times where we need to run from some situations. I think toxicity exists in a lot of environments where projects are being led or not well led. But I think also this insatiable desire to go, okay, like my lessons learned on that project, I want to see what I can do now with that. Because it's like these are assets we create for ourselves as project managers.
That's awesome. And I just want to really kind of dive deeper into what you're talking about right there. Because if you're sitting at home and you're going, okay, there's some things I should be running away from and some things I should be running towards, I'm wondering if you could maybe give an example of like something where you were like, I had to run away from that.
Mm.
And I learned a bigger, even lesson running towards, or times when running towards or running away were I was running towards something only to realize I needed to run away from that something. And that journey.
Wow, like I've got a really big example. I'm not sure if you're ready for this. Um, I'm certainly ready for it because I've been really engaging this conversation for the last probably 5, 6 years. I was in a career role where I was literally chasing something. I wanted a bigger role, I wanted a bigger piece of the pie. I was the kind of preeminent female on staff, and my gender was holding me back. And what I felt very clear about was that I wanted to do everything within my power to make sure that my gender would not be ignored, that that would be something that people just couldn't continue to look at as a factor, because I was delivering at the project level above and beyond every other male counterpart. So I was chasing this level of recognition. And I know now, I didn't know then, but I know now it was attached to my gender because I was in an industry that didn't value women, that felt that women were accessories, that felt that women were supportive, that felt that women were complementary, as opposed to what? Like I say it now and it's just ludicrous to me because I never believed any of that, but I was in an environment that really believed that. Um, Fast forward to in my pursuit of achieving that, I became really strategic and I started to do things that I see now also where I was gathering closer to some key male leaders. I was looking for ways to support them and or for them to see me in a different light so that they would somehow deem me worthy. Um, Unfortunately, in doing that, one of them took advantage of me in a closed door room meeting. That was a horrifying 45-minute experience for me. I was completely blindsided by their behavior, verbal, physical, energetic, emotional, even spiritual, I would say, because they used language that was very like, I know and see and have power over you and your beliefs. In that abuse situation that happened in that 45-minute meeting, I found myself when I finally got free of it, of course, literally running out of the building, grabbing the keys to my car and my purse, running out of the building and sobbing for what I felt I obviously didn't deserve, but at the same time, I was still kind of figuring out how to play it, and I didn't recognize the toxicity of the moment in the moment. I mean, I see it now, of course, and this was a little over a decade ago, so it's been quite a while. I've had a lot of therapy, I've had a lot of support getting through it, but it was in my chasing something that I actually recognize now. I did absolutely nothing to deserve that treatment. However, my chasing made me vulnerable. And that's something I've had to reckon with. And I want people to hear very clearly, I did nothing in my strategy and in my pursuit of that, you know, role or position I wanted. I didn't deserve to be treated that way because I was on that pace. I just recognize now that I made myself, unbeknownst to me, personally vulnerable. And this person took advantage of that. And it was completely wrong. I was completely mistreated and misaligned. It was a horrible situation. However, upon that reflection, I realized it was in my chasing that I lost sight of how to also protect myself.
So beautiful right there, because I'd love to take this question and take it into that space of protecting yourself.
Mm.
Chasing can cause us to get fixated on the goal that we are running towards.
Yeah.
If you are a project manager right now chasing something,
Mm.
are there guardrails, boundaries, tools that you would suggest
Yeah.
now that the you of the past didn't have,
Yeah.
that they might be able to use to erect to ensure that doesn't happen?
So this is where collaboration comes in. I was not a collaborator back then. I witnessed my father as an entrepreneur never collaborate necessarily. That didn't mean he didn't have people that he worked didn't, I mean, he worked with people, but he was always like very hyper focused on his own discipline trajectory. And he put a lot of energy into that. I did the same. But it was that created such a massive blind spot in me. And I recognized since that situation and needing to open up about what I was doing and what decisions that I made and what it created, what it did was it enabled me to recognize that had I been in a team environment where I had built mutual respect and trust, my team members would have helped keep me safe. They just would have. That's what we do as human beings. Now, it takes trust and it takes mutual respect within a pocket of people. But when you cultivate that and then you are transparent enough about your own desires with those people, it creates a checks and a balances and accountability and a mutual care for one another. That is what I didn't have. And as a result, that situation was incredibly devastating. And then from that situation, what I realized was I began to run away from those places. So I did the other thing that I wondered about my dad, which is he running from situations or is he focused on getting to something? And the entrepreneurial spirit in me transitioned from having such focus that I actually made myself vulnerable to then recognizing, okay, I need to rethink. And now I need to flee those situations. And that's actually become a far healthier thing for me to do because I do it in team. So whether that's sharing my like desires with a partner, like a life partner, of which I do have one, and we've been together for 33 years now, or it's sharing it with other partners, people that I have had in my life, either professional or personal context, that I share enough about what I'm thinking that they are able then to reflect, well, this is what I'm hearing you say. The other thing that I have, shout out to my professional coach. He knows who he is. I've had a coach for a decade now. And this is someone who I can talk with, that I can like say stuff to, and then they can reflect back to me what they're hearing and or give me seeds of encouragement on, hey, think about this, maybe and that's helped me have real purpose about fleeing environments where I recognize they might be healthy for me. I think in a project, there are many projects out there that I know I'm not well skilled to be a part of. And I think a part of even our project management code of ethics, for those of us who are certified with PMI, what we recognize is our code of ethics aren't very deep and wide. They represent depth and width, but there's not a lot in there. Honesty, responsibility, respect. Like, it's simple things. But in doing that, we also recognize we need to take responsibility for the decisions we make, and we need to be truthful. And so as project managers and as entrepreneurs, I think done in solitude is risky. And when you do it in collaboration, you actually minimize your risk or greatly impact your risk. And it helps you in a diverse collaborative team. You get the benefit of everyone else's position and vantage point. And then you can kind of come up with, okay, are we still on the right track? And that's really what I think it's what has saved my entrepreneurial ways from falling into my father's footsteps and me having the sense, although he was a successful man, I think toward the end of his life, those successes were not important. Those successes became the lesser. And as an entrepreneur, by definition, I think what he recognized was the things that had greater meaning at the end of his life were the people that he loved and the people that loved him. And that caring community connection was very small. And the money and the achievement, those things, they didn't really hold up at the end of his life. And so now with that filter and then this sense of, okay, as a project manager, how am I going to actively think about being entrepreneurial? It isn't about creating that collaborative environment, knowing that I am better together with others, and then embracing the curiosity of something that, is risky is coming. We need to be curious about the risk and we need to collectively work towards it. And at the same time, we need to not be in environments that are toxic to us. And I think I'm still learning this, but these are the sort of tools. And I think when you talk about how to project management and entrepreneurship tie together, I think for me, that's how it ties together. We have to be entrepreneurs as PMs. but we cannot do it alone. We need teams.
Yeah, perfect. As you were talking there, I couldn't help but hear almost a perfect definition of Simon Sinek's trusting teams from his Infinite Game,
Hmm.
and having that space where we've got people around us who can give us that feedback
Hmm.
that sometimes we want to hear and sometimes we don't want to hear,
Yeah.
because feedback's really important, especially in entrepreneurship. Sometimes, like you said, you're running to or from something, so much so.
Mm.
I just want to be clear, if anyone's in an abusive situation and you're listening to this right now, please, there's help, there's places you can go, there's supports, reach out, find that help you need. But finding that trusting team is also difficult, especially as entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs have get up and go.
Mhm.
Um, and finding that team together. So maybe just a little piece in your own journey and finding that team and how that really affected you. And if I'm someone new at home and I'm just like, Amber, I love what you're saying. That's great. How do I find that team?
Mm.
What might be your advice to how to find a team where you're going to get that trusting relationship that's going to be, because I'm hearing you talk about deep and meaningful impact.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this is where, I've often coaching, students and individuals, and they say to me, like, my job, I can't stand it, but it's good money. It's got a pension. And I'm like, did you just hear what you said? I think there's nothing wrong with valuing money and a pension, but you need to be really confident that money and a pension is more valuable to you than your own self-worth. Because working environments, projects that push us outside of our own personal values and our own personal safety, the cost is too great. And those projects need bold leaders who are able to stand up and say, no. There are projects that will perhaps opportunities that come across your plate that you may be offered and or invited into. And if you feel good about it, great. But if you cease to feel good about it, I think the universe needs you to stand up and say, I can't do this. Because if there's one thing I learned about my toxicity and this environment that I was so blindsided in being taken advantage of, it was that I really was valuing these achievements over my own self. And as professionals, the work just ain't that important. Take a lesson from my dad. I watched my father pass away with just myself and my mother and my partner and one of my children beside him. And that was his entire world at the end. He took none of his efforts and energies with him. And yet he went in peace. And I know he knows he was loved, and I know that he loved. And the pursuit and the achievement and all those things were not relevant at that part. And you know what? Every single one of us is going to get to that part. And I think it's really important that we get there with as much self-awareness and as much opportunity to have been cared for and cared for others. Because, even in an age of technology and development and the way the globe is being reshaped, humanity is our greatest power. And it's about not relinquishing humanity. It's about holding on to those treasures. And I think as a project manager, I feel incredibly inspired to work in a bunch of diverse environments, because as a profession, we transcend industry. We have the ability to do a lot of different cool things because we bring structure and thinking and ways of working that can be applicable in a bunch of different environments. But we also need to boldly stand up and say, but we're going to do this with ethics, with responsibility, with mutual respect. We're going to do it in honesty and truth, because those types of things are valuable far beyond just the project itself. That backup camera project is super helpful, and people made a lot of money and are continuing to make money on the backup camera and the innovations and the project development. But all of those humans behind that project development are still humans, and they have families and they have connections. And those things ultimately will be what matter most. So let's hold that perspective today, not just wait to the end. And for the entrepreneurs out there pursuing, you make the world go. I know entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial spirit, it's where the innovation and creativity has come from. It's why we have advancement. So there's no negative there. It's just that as you pursue those things, remember your humanity is your greatest gift and your connection. And the more people you bring along with you in community, in diversity, that's the secret sauce, I think. Projects and entrepreneurial pursuits are not successful when they are done in solitude. It takes lots and lots and lots of people to make really cool stuff happen. Let's do that with each other in dignity and mutual respect. And then we all win, and the money's there too.
That sounds amazing. I want to say thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.